about parents who you think are really need to be, moved to other care, whether or not, they're going to move in with you or whatever. Do you have any tips for sort of bringing someone around to that point in your experience? What are some tips that you would have to family for that?
The biggest tip, and maybe this is for, I understand the 1 in 6 people on this call who aren't necessarily caregivers, but may become caregivers in a couple of years, is it's never too early to start these conversations about what wishes are. I think that just maybe as a family sitting down and having a conversation about what caregiving is from both the perspective of the person giving it and the person receiving it, and what the challenges are, and the fact that even though we have all of these silo systems of supports, all of the different agencies that I mentioned, we don't have a national infrastructure to support caregiving yet. And so that doesn't just mean supporting caregivers, it means, giving care to the people who need it also. So it's a two-way conversation. So, having a conversation about what caregiving means and the fact that there may need to be changes. If one of us is diagnosed with a condition, we may not be able to continue living here. What planning have you done in case something like that happens? So having those conversations as early as possible. If it's a little late, if the diagnosis, for instance, has already happened, or there's been a fall, there's been something that's triggered, make caregiving more immediate. The best you can just kind of have conversations and ask, okay, so have you, check in, have you thought about this? Hopefully, the person that your loved one will be in a position to answer that question. And if they're not, you got to do some digging. I know for me, I had to kind of like dig through a bunch of my dad's documents and whatnot to kind of figure out different things that he had done that he hadn't talked to me about and to discover it. So you may have to do a little bit, as respectfully as you can, a little bit of reconnaissance on your own to kind of see what exists there. Having conversations with, if there are other siblings, other people who might be sharing this caregiving role, having those conversations early on. Well, what do you think you'd want to do? What are you comfortable doing? I mean, there are lots of stories. You can Google and go online and share where caregivers have given examples of their experiences. Maybe you can use those as conversation stories and say, okay, well, I see that this person in this situation had to manage their loved one's medications. Is that something that you feel comfortable with? Or you feel
Mhm.
comfortable with bathing and things like that? Or do you feel your strengths lie elsewhere? How do we divvy these things up? How much time would you actually have? If there are caregivers who spend 30 plus hours a week, if you're working, how much time do you think you would be able to juggle? How much flexibility do you have at work? How much leave do you have at work to take off to do certain things? Having these conversations about who may be available when needs arise, because unfortunately you can't anticipate everything. Other things you want to talk about is, who's going to be financial power of attorney. This is going to be a very dicey subject, and I'll speak on my experience in the African American community. People I know, at least where I'm from, people get skeptical when someone gets the power of attorney because without necessarily understanding that, that's not necessarily someone wants to do. That's something someone wants to do. It's a huge responsibility. Who would you want to take over your financial affairs? Who would you want to be an alternate for all of these things? Who would you want to help you with your healthcare decisions? Maybe that's somebody who's going to be different that's going to help you with your financial decisions. And again, who's going to be the alternate if they're not available, if they're no longer around?